Back to the show. Our next guest is an author, speaker, and professional coach. And in 25 years, she says there's one important thing that can either help you or hinder your success.
That's right. She's talking about your ego. Susan Wehrley joins us now. Her latest book is called Ego at Work. Great to have you back.
Thank you. Great to be here, ladies.
So exciting. I think this is, first of all, it's a great play on words, just ego at work. But you're talking about work and in your life, how your ego comes in and can help or hinder you. How do you explain ego?
You know, ego is that aspect of self that we think we ought to be. You know, we've been scripted from a really young age in what's appropriate and how we should act. And we have these automatic reactions to things, so it's really not necessarily our authentic self. So we can be saying, I want one thing, and then automatically these reactions occur, and we're not getting what we say we want. So that's the ego at work.
One of the things you say is that you have to be aware of three different aspects of our own ego, starting with the know thyself.
Right, right. A lot of people, when they think of the ego, they think of that big ego, right? That's the one we kind of don't like.
The narcissistic one.
Yeah, the narcissistic one that's grandiose and puffs up. And reacts, just goes for things. They fling out and they don't stop and pause. That's what I call the big ego in the book. But there's this little ego too, and that's our self-doubt. That's that little whisper in our head, that chatterbox that says we're not good enough. So we can actually start something with the big ego and be really grandiose about it. You know, I want to lose 20 pounds, or I want to write a book, or I want to start a business. And then all of a sudden that little ego creeps in and says, you know, who do you think you are, little missy? You know, and if it doesn't happen in the timing we think, that voice really gets loud, right?
Yeah.
And that's the ego at work. So the book is about how do we connect with that aspect of self that's our authentic self and stay in alignment to our purpose. And that really has to do with connecting with our intuitive self. And you talked about that earlier in the show.
Is that little
gut,
voice,
right?
Yeah, is that little voice a checks and balance for you? Is it just fear talking, or is it something that you should listen to when it says, hey, you know, things aren't working here, you know, or is it just fear?
Yeah, you got it. The ego's really fear. It's a fear-based mindset. And that grandiose, that big ego covers it, right? The fear. And that self-doubt is like over-embellished in the fear. But that intuitive self has a way of letting us know what are those possibilities even in the midst of obstacles. We all of a sudden see this way we could make something happen.
Sometimes seeing the way to make it happen isn't enough. I feel like just having clear vision isn't enough because you have to take those steps to get there. And so it's sort of like, you know, you see it off in the horizon, but you have to know practically day by day what it's going to take to reach that end.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why the steps in the book teach us how to be in the present moment, to breathe and to ask, how might I? What's my next step that I have to do to make that happen? And by being more in the present moment versus too much in the future, that can really scare us and create that fear-based thinking, right? Or too much in the past thinking, oh, you know, I wasn't good enough back then. If we stay here and we ask, okay, this is where I want to go, so how might I? What do I need to do next? It gives us that step-by-step guideline. Intuition does that for us.
Ego, you capitalize all of it. E-G-O. What does that stand for? Why do you capitalize it?
Well, there's two ways you could look at it. It's either edge God out, which is our godlike self, our intuition, you know, whatever you want to call that, right? Or edging the group out, because oftentimes edging the group out means we are being too narcissistic, too much in our big ego, and it's all about I, and we all know there's no I in teamwork. But sometimes in order to be an individual, we do need to edge the group out, right? So sometimes that's good. That's saying, hey, I'm not going to fall into group think.
I'm going to be a leader.
I'm going to be a leader, and I'm going to be authentic and true to myself. You know, and do what I need to do for me.
What about when you're approached by someone, and maybe it's someone you really care about in your life, who has to be right, has to be in control?
That's the million-dollar question. Everybody asks me that. And we have, in one of the chapters, all the techniques and what you need to do so you don't react to other people's ego, because the truth of the matter is, when you react to somebody else's ego, it's really your ego. They did something. They always need to be right, or they're interrupting you, or they need to be in control. And something gets triggered in you, probably your small ego, that you think you've lost your power to that person who always needs to be right and in control. So the book teaches you how to stay in your power and just notice where that person is with curiosity and not judgment and not fear. But just to notice, oh, isn't that interesting? They need to be right. They need to be in control.
Oh, isn't that cool for them?
Isn't that interesting? And then you hold your space, and it teaches mantras, breathing. I have an ego workout and things that you can do. So it's great.
Cool. So to get those ego mantras and the workouts that you can do, you got to get a copy of the book for yourself. This Saturday, you have a book signing on the 3rd. It's at 2 o'clock at Barnes Noble at Brookfield Square, so you can go and meet Susan there. The book website is egoatwork.com. You can get a copy there, or again, stop in on Saturday, meet her, and get a copy and have it signed.
And I'll be signing the books with my hard
With your
hat on.
hard hat?
I have to bring this because, you know, it's all about reconstructing your mindset, because what you think about, you bring about. So we often think it's our circumstances that activate our ego, and it's really what we say about our circumstances. So I'll be talking about that on Saturday, too.
Thanks, Susan.
I like it. Great to see you.
Great to see you.
Thank you.